Awesome and very interesting. So I hope you enjoyed this talk with my good friend, who we miss very dearly here live at the event, Sylvia Sykes.
Hello, ILHC. Thanks again for tuning in for another one of our LED sessions. My name is Ryan Swift. I am a head DJ for ILHC and also your host for our LED series this year. In case you don't know who I am also creator and host of the Track Podcast, which is currently on hiatus, but will be returning in 2022, I promise. The full archive of over 50 episodes is still available, including one of my first guests, who is also going to be who we're talking to today. So if you want to catch that, you can go back in the archives and check it out. But a lot has happened since then, so it's going to be great to catch up with our guest in this session. As I said in my previous session, I keep getting put in the position of having to introduce people that really need no introduction. And Sylvia is no different. We are joined today by the wonderful Sylvia Sykes. She is one of the most widely recognized and respected swing dance instructors in the world. She began dancing in 1966, competing in 1970, teaching in 1979, and studied with many of the dance greats that you've heard of: Frankie Manning, Dean Collins, Maxie Dorf, Willie Desthoff. The list goes on. She's a 6-time U.S. Open finalist, member of the National Swing Dance Hall of Fame, and co-founder of this here International Lindy Hop Championships. I am thrilled to have a person that is one of the most sought after instructors and judges for Lindy Hop and Balboa, and a torchbearer and a friend, Sylvia Sykes. Hi.
Hi. Thank you.
How are you?
Hope to live up to that introduction.
It's all true. It's all facts.
Okay.
It's all facts. I'm so glad to be able to see you, even though we're not going to be seeing you in person at ILHC this year. Seeing your face, which I haven't seen in much too long.
That's right. Yeah, I was excited to come to ILHC. I got a ticket, and then my doctors, I have cystic fibrosis, and my doctors said that they would rather me not go this year because being there would be okay if I could somehow transport myself there. They felt okay about me being at the event, but not me getting to the event. So I'm staying home to be extra safe. So, and that's another thing, is if I cough during this interview, that's because that's just my cystic fibrosis. I'm not ill. It's just the way it goes. Hopefully that won't happen.
Okay, let me know if you need to tap out for anything, but I'm sure we'll be good.
You'll see it.
We'll have a separate reel for that. Like I said, I am so glad to have you, and I'm so glad you're staying safe.
Thank you.
It really is. I want you to be around for many more ILHCs.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping to be around for another 30 years, so I thought I'll miss this one so I can do that.
Yeah, perfect. And you're here virtually, so that's
great.
Let's talk a little bit. One of I guess the theme of this LED series is what you didn't know, and
that's you're talking about the audience, not what I don't know, correct?
I mean, I don't know. Do you know what you don't know?
No,
I don't know what I don't know.
I don't know.
Yes. Apparently what the audience doesn't know, and we talked for 2.5 hours, and we've had you in person. So I know that your life has been an open book, and we've talked a lot about a lot of different things. But for me personally, one thing that I'd love to hear about, and we talked with Ryan Francois in another session, is a period that I don't hear a lot about, which is, we hear about maybe this kind of mythic meeting of all these people coming together, and I want to talk about that because I never get tired of that. But what happened after that, and what was kind of the birth of the modern swing scene like in the 80s, 90s, and how it evolved into where we are today. So the period right before I started dancing is still a little bit of a mystery to me, and I'd love to hear about that. So,
yeah, well, I started, Jonathan and I we had met Dean Collins in 1980, and we started taking lessons from him in 1981. So we had already been kind of doing the SoCal style of stuff, or the Dean Collins version of stuff. But I was always interested in the New York or the more traditional roots version of everything, which I wasn't really finding out in California much. So when we heard about this, I don't know, it wasn't really an event. It was just, we heard that Ryan and, well, we didn't know Ryan, but that the Jive and Linden Lindy Hoppers and also Stephen and Aaron were going to be in New York at this thing. We thought, well, let's go, you know. So we went, and that's when we met Frankie for the first time, and Norma, and the Jive and Linden Lindy Hoppers, and I got to meet Charlie Mead and a bunch of other folks at that weekend. So that was my first big introduction to that style of Lindy, the more the roots version of it.
How did you hear that they were going to New York? It's not like you looked on, you saw it on Facebook.
There was no Facebook back then.
I know.
Carrier pigeon. No, it was, I think that somehow, I think we talked to Aaron, my friend, and Jan Olson, who used to also dance with Rob Van Haren. She had heard about it from somebody, I think from Aaron maybe. And so she said, hey, blah, blah, blah. And we said, well, let's go. And so the three of us went. We just, got airplane tickets and went to New York and found a place to stay. And we were there, and it was really great.
That's wild.
Yeah, it was a very memorable weekend. I mean, meeting Norma was a kick in the pants, of course. Frankie was awesome. Norma was bigger than life for me,
Did you know? Did you have any hope or individuals that you were hoping to meet? Like, were you hoping to meet Norma going there, or you just showed up and then
I didn't know. I was just
Norma,
like
your Facebook.
I didn't
Norma
know.
Miller.
I didn't know who was left. I had been watching Hells a Poppin' on television, trying to, as we've talked about before, watching it once a year and Hells on television, trying to figure it out. But I didn't know all the names of everybody. I was just up for anybody. It wasn't like, oh, I hope I meet blah, blah, blah. I was like, anybody's going to be great. And there was a class that Pepsi Bethel was putting on. And I think I've told you this story before, but I thought it was, I'm dumb. I thought it was going to be a partner dance thing. So we went to the class, and it was not. And I was so awkward. I was the worst. It was horrible. So I was in the back, and we're supposed to change lines.
What was it if it was not?
It was kind of like, it was like solo jazz movement, and I was completely not ready for it. And I was like, it was just like everyone's going left, I'm going right. It was horrible. And so the lines were supposed to move up, and I just always stayed in the back near the corner. And after about 30 minutes, I left because I was a distraction to the class. I didn't want to ruin the experience for other people. Because my presence was disrupting, not intending to be, but it was like, what the hell's that sad white lady doing in the back of the room? So I just left.
Were you sad?
No, I was embarrassed.
Yeah.
I was very embarrassed and feeling like I had intruded upon something for that other people. Probably no one even knew I was there, but.
That's me in every class.
Yeah. I get it.
Yeah. So what
so that was kind of the thing that I knew we were going to do with
Pepsi.
Well, I knew we were going to take this lesson from Pepsi Bethel, and I kind of knew who that was.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And obviously Norma made a big impression.
We spent I think we've talked this story before, but we spent 3 days with Norma. She just glommed onto us, and she said, I don't like where I'm living. Can I stay with you guys? And we went, sure. So she stayed with us, took us all around, and that's when I saw her do her stand-up at the Apollo, and which I think I've told that story too before, but the short version is, she said, I'm going to do a stand-up at the Apollo, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this really nice black lady's going to stand up at the Apollo, and they're going to eat her alive.
They're going to take the hook. Yeah.
It's going to be really horrible, but I'll be there and support her. So we were there as her guests. And after, 10 seconds on stage, the whole place was in her hand. And it was like, she's she's great, because I didn't know that she had opened for Red Fox or anything like that.
Yeah, and that was the prime of that, right? Because when she was on Sanford and Son, that was early 80s, so it would have been like right around that time. So that was her prime comedy.
Right, and I didn't know. I didn't recognize that was the same person, blah, blah.
Yeah,
you know, and she took us to Mommy Lou Park's birthday party, and we just had a great old time, just hanging out. I mean, Norma's such a freaking kick, but Norma for 3 days, 24/7 was awesome.
Oh, that's amazing.
I mean, that was, I didn't get a lot of dancing stuff in, but I got a lot of stories and a lot of color and backstories and energy out of her. That was really great. That was awesome.
What about dance impressions? I was talking to Ryan, and he said you went to Smalls. Is that where you met everybody? Was that Smalls Paradise?
No, I met everybody at Cat Club.
Oh, at the Cat Club. Okay. And what were your impressions of?
There was a whole lot of really good dancers that I just wanted to suck it all in, just everybody. And it wasn't just Frankie and Norma and Charlie. It was like just name, people I don't know their name or don't remember their name of. Everybody was impressive to me. I was excited about all the old dancers. The young kids, not so much, but the people my age, anybody who was 50 or older, I just wanted to watch them. That's all I wanted to do.
How did it strike you as noticeably different from, some of the elders that you had watched on the West Coast? Well,
yeah. I mean, they're slightly different, but I mean, it still looked, because they weren't throwing each other around and they weren't doing flash stuff, Mm-hmm. So some of it was different, but some of it was really similar. But they were all just, at that point in my journey, I was just so excited to dance with anybody, leading or following, dance with anybody who had some kind of style that I enjoyed, and I wanted to dance with them and just experience it and absorb it. Not that I could do it, but I just wanted to have that experience in my soul, if that kind of makes sense. And that's kind of all I cared about doing. It was just dancing with people. I wasn't trying to impress them. I wasn't trying to have them go like, "Ooh, you're good." I just wanted to suck it up. I was very, I guess I was kind of selfish, but I just wanted to just soak it in. That was my motivation all the time. Soak it in.
Do you remember going home after? Like what did you bring home with you after?
Were you like... Yeah, well, what I did was we went to the Lincoln Center Library to look at Spirit Moves. And that's when she had decided that too many people were looking at it. And so Myrna had decided to block people from seeing it because we were ripping off the dancers. So I thought, I wonder how much she paid those dancers. So through their library, Jonathan and I contacted her attorney. And I said, we want to see this, we'll pay for it to see it. I mean, we're not trying to rip anybody off, but I don't think she paid the dancers a whole lot of money, so I don't see why I'm ripping off the dancers. And through a lot of negotiation, blah, 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 we bought the entire Spirit Moves, including Reel 4 with Mama Lou Park's kids doing the 70s stuff, for way more money than any of my cars ever had cost. Because we thought it was an important thing. It was like what we could take home with us, because we weren't going to be able to be on the East Coast that much, So we bought the Spirit Moves for $1 bazillion and took that home. That's what I brought home with me, that I could watch again and again, which I did. And I also realized that there's more than one way to do a swing out. And I appreciated that that things got way broader for me at that point than they had been, as far as what entailed this dance and what entailed this thing. And so I felt like there was way more of it. Instead of it being, a 5-volume set, it was like a 1,000-volume set, and I was really excited about it. So it was like it was going to be a never-ending quest. I was never going to get to the end of it, but that meant I had stuff to look forward to for the rest of my life. That's basically the feeling I had when I went home.
Did you know then that it was going to be the rest of your life? Like this was something that you were going to do forever?
Well, yes and no. I knew it was something I was going to be involved in, but I didn't know it wasn't going to be my job. In those days, to make a living with this, you had to be a ballroom dancer or a studio dancer, which I wasn't interested in. I don't have any desire to do. Or a performer, and I'm not a performer, so I wasn't going to be a performer. So I wasn't going to be like Ryan's a great performer. I knew that wasn't going to happen. And if you wanted to make a living teaching something, you'd have to do, a broader spectrum than just swing dancing.
It was Arthur Murray.
So, and I wasn't going to do that. So with Jonathan and I had been teaching for a while, and we had a revival in Santa Barbara. We had like 300 people in our classes every week, starting from like 1980 on. So we had a revival before the revival, and
a pre-vival.
Well, we had a revival in Santa Barbara, which is like a nowhere nothing town, but
Yeah.
that lasted until about the mid 90s or something, and then it kind of went by the wayside. But yeah,
Interesting. Right.
but so we were scraping by. We were doing other things to make money to live, but I knew I was going to be interested in meeting people who did the dance. I was going to be interested in all the regional variations I could find, not just East Coast, West Coast, but St. Louis, and I've talked about these things before, all the different variations of stuff. I just love this stuff. It just floats my boat. And again, I'm not a great performer. I'm not a great dancer, but I got to be a good enough follow so that I could follow anybody and just suck it up. That was my deal. Be a good enough follower that I could facilitate and support the leader or the follower, because a good enough leader, so I could support the person I was dancing with so that I could just experience them. That was my goal.
We did a bunch of big time jumps.
Sorry.
No, we've got half an hour. We've got to do that.
Yeah.
We can't talk about it all in real time. But I'm curious, having been through all of that, and the last time that you and I talked on the record was 5 years ago.
Really? That's long ago?
Yeah.
Time flies when you're just floating around by yourself.
I know, right? 5 years ago. A lot has changed in the scene in just that time, pandemic aside. How do you feel about the current scene where things are today?
I'm more hopeful than I was a while back. So I see that, there was a little bit of like during the trad jazz stuff, and there was some, I think I've talked about this before, but every scene has these little 1 year phases and 5 year phases and 10-year phases. And a lot of the smaller phases are important so that people can try something out and see what works and color outside the lines and be weird. And then they kind of figure out what of that works and bring it back into the fold. And I think that people have done that fairly well the last 4 or 5 years. It's a little less, the performances are getting a little better, a little less just flash and trash, and actually have dancing to it. I don't know how to explain this very well, so I apologize, but there's a difference between a perfectly executed performance and dancing.
Yeah.
And what I had been seeing was, as far as contests and stuff like that, people were executing perfectly, but they weren't necessarily dancing really well.
Yeah.
And the heart and soul, it was two-dimensional for me. And I see that the skill level of dancing is being brought back into the performative part. So I'm feeling better about the flash and trash part of our scene, because dancing's involved with it. It's not just perfect execution, but some people like dance the heck out of this stuff, and it makes my heart happy. And socially, people are just happy to, at least the people that I dance with, they're mostly just happy to dance. They're not trying to show me the fancy move. And I mean, I could do 7 swing outs in a row and be happy as a clam, you know?
Yeah.
It's not that I need fancy stuff. So I think we're fairly healthy for right now. I think that the pandemic has brought people, has forced people or encouraged people or allowed people to do a lot of solo jazz. So their movement in their bodies is a little bit more natural now, because they spent last 2 years just doing solo jazz by themselves. So I think that might be an aspect when we get back to social dancing that might help things. Hopefully.
I did not realize that was an assignment. I did not. So
I knew it was an assignment,
just
and I
as
chose.
Awkward as ever.
Me too. I went to my dance studio, and which is in my garage, and I thought, okay, I'm going to do solo jazz because I'm so bad at solo jazz. And I spent about 10 minutes, and that was like, I think that was like March 30th, 2020, and that was it. I'm an awkward I am not a solo jazz artist.
Were you in the back row of your garage?
Yeah, all by myself. Like when I teach with Sky, we always we do a warm up with solo jazz stuff, and I'm like, I feel so awkward and so ridiculous at that point. So I thought, well, I'll spend the time and get better at it, but I didn't. So yeah, I wasted my time.
You did not stop.
No, I had a good time.
What do you attribute the kind of that recent change to? Do you think it's just maturity?
Yeah, partly, yeah. Because you have new people coming in who are gonna be a little awkward, maybe not as good as the A team. You know, you got the B team or the C team coming in, and then after they get a little bit more comfortable with stuff, then they start bringing their personality, their cultural differences, the music that they grew up listening to, the dances they grew up doing, and bringing those movements to the scene and integrating those. And sometimes that's awkward and gets out of the lines, and then it has to get refined and brought back in so that it's still Lindy Hop. And that's a thing that happens like every 4 or 5 years. I see that kind of coming around. So, I mean, there's a changing of the guard kind of happening now. We're kind of in the middle of going from one generation to another generation as far as the A team. I mean, we still have, like, the A team's still there, but we have new kids coming up. And so the next 3 or 4 years, I think we're going to have a little bit of a shift again. But the folks that I see coming up are more, or at least they seem to be cognizant of the roots and the fact that matters.
Yeah.
And so that's giving me hope, is it's not just like, hey, look what I can do, but we need this dance to stay alive and be in the here and now and progress. But we also need it to be the same dance and not sprout off into another dance that we're going to call something else.
West Coast swing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I said it.
West
You
Coast,
didn't have to say it.
I know, but West Coast swing did evolve into another dance.
Yeah.
It's not a pejorative. It's just a different dance.
It's just different. Yeah.
And I'm hoping that Lindy Hop can stay something where if Shorty George and Big B and Frankie and George Lloyd and Dean Collins and, you know, any of those guys popped up again, and all the followers too, Ann Mills, Ann Johnson, Norma, didn't mean to like be bad with the ladies, but yeah. If they were to watch it, they kind of go like, wow, that's cool. You guys have done some cool stuff with this. Not like, what do you call this dance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's still recognizable.
And that's my hope. That's my hope. And the fact that we have contemporary bands playing classics, but also playing new music, I think is helping a lot too. I think that we kind of got in a rut when there was the 40 songs that we all danced to, and that was it. So the fact that the music has a wider range of options is helping the dance have a wider range of options as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the focus on the history of the dance is it's not something that I started with. Like I went down rabbit holes myself, but I don't think I focused on like the cultural part of it so much. Like I was collecting moves. I was collecting music. I was collecting images, whatever it is, without really understanding. And I think as a scene, we're focusing on
History and roots.
Yeah. in a much better way. I think there's still a long way to go, but
yeah, but I think that we're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
And I think that we're going to broaden that aspect and also not codify it, but make sure that that's always going to continue to be part of our scene so that new people coming in will have that advantage of having an understanding of the history, the culture, and stuff like that versus just, here's a swing out with an over the back, boom, boom, and a kicky thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think also even things like the museum at ILHC helps that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, one of the nice things, especially, with everything we've been going through lately, like one of the nice things that we have as a community is there's still a direct line, even though, a lot of the folks just aren't with us anymore, but we're only one person removed.
Right.
Right. And that's, that's important. And I think we're really lucky in that, I can look at Frankie the way that, or Norma or whoever it is, like the way that like I kind of look at like baseball players from before I was born, and you're like, their statistics and like you watch the footage, but you don't know anything about them as a person or what they went through as a person. But we can get that,
right.
Which is pretty cool.
And we have to pass that on. I think it's important that we don't just have this thing and then say, oh, there was this guy named Frank and this is that the history of these people and what they thought and what they brought to this community is important to pass on. So I think it's the cultural history, the bigger cultural history that we have, but the history of these people is important to pass on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that then, so we got to be keepers of the flame and pass it on to the next generation so that they can pass it on and not in some kind of weird iconic thing. So it's, pass on the humanity of these people. Don't just pass on, they did these things,
That's the hardest thing to do. It's the hardest thing to pass on. It's hard to encapsulate that.
That's the gift that Frankie gave us, and we have to make sure we pass that on.
And so many folks too, like Norma and George, like you said. Do you? I was just going to ask you something, and I totally.
I'm sorry.
What it was no?
Hey, welcome to being old.
Welcome to being old. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it right now. We're actually pretty close to being out of time.
Okay.
Is there any message you want to give to the folks at home watching ILHC remotely?
I hope we can see everybody in person next year. I mean, I really do.
Yeah.
I'm getting really isolated here, living by myself in a canyon in California for 2 years by myself and a cat. It's getting really weird. I would say that try to listen to music that moves you. It doesn't have to be an official kind of swing dance stuff, but listen to music that makes you happy and makes you want to move. And then move. And it doesn't matter if it's good or not. It doesn't matter if it's cool. It doesn't matter if it's dorky. But just moving to music until you can get back to social dancing, I think is important. And then social dancing, get brave and come to ILHC. Or if you're not brave enough to come to ILHC, we're really welcoming. It's not just for fancy people. It's for everybody. Find a local scene where you can dance and just try it and try to enjoy the social aspect more than the performative aspect of, am I doing the swing out good or am I doing this correctly? Correct for me is having fun, your partner's having fun, and no one's getting hurt. Then there's aesthetics. I mean, people can like what you're doing or not like what you're doing, but the most important thing is to have fun with you and your partner and with the music.
I think well, you nailed it as you always do, but I think having been away for as long as we have, at least I think for me is like, I'm going to not worry about any of that stuff and just really, it's going to, I won't have a choice, but just enjoy it for the,
I just want to, the problem for me right now is I don't think I could swing out for more than a minute at 120. So I have to get some aerobic conditioning so I can actually swing out again,
I'm going to go get on my exercise bike. So when we get together.
Well, I'm 70 and I have cystic fibrosis, so that's my excuse, but I got to get over that. So.
All All right. We'll start doing Peloton together.
That's it.
It'll be good. All right. I will let you go. Sylvia,
Thank you, Ryan.
It is always a pleasure. I'm glad we get to catch up. And
it's been great. And I hope everybody's enjoying ILHC virtually. And for the folks who are lucky enough to be there in person, soak it up. Soak it up for those of us who can't be there, please.
Absolutely, we will. Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Some words of wisdom from the great Sylvia Sykes. Thank you so much, Ryan Swift, for kind of talking with Sylvia there and applying some wisdom out of her. Sylvia, thank you so much for your words. It's such a pleasure. I wish I could see you in person, Sylvia. I miss you. And I'm sure everybody watching online does as well. I know we all do here in the building. So thanks so much for that. I hope you enjoyed that LED talk there.